one of the many benefits of being free from cult mind control is the sheer amount of intellectual freedom that you get from escaping this environment of mind control, of conformity, and of intellectual stultification. And having escaped the international Marxist tendency, I have quickly found that a whole new horizon of knowledge and of books and thinking is now available to me as a result of leaving the confines of the mental prison that was Trotskyist ideology. After I left the international Marxist tendency, I was so excited by my newfound intellectual freedom that I went out and I splurged a whole load of money just on books. All sorts of books. Works of literature, works on politics, philosophy, history, all kinds of books. Just to free my mind and enjoy the privilege of being able to think for myself for once in a very, very long time. And one of the books which I got is this magnificent memoir by one of my personal heroes, a man who I foolishly turned away from when I joined the cult, Christopher Hitchens. And there is this wonderful passage towards the end of the book, at the very end in fact, and I'm going to find it here. Yes, there is this magnificent quote about free thinking, and about critical thinking, and about standing up to totalitarianism of all kinds. And I'm going to read the whole passage. It's quite a task to combat the absolutists and the relativists at the same time, to maintain that there is no totalitarian solution, while also insisting that, yes, we on our side also have unalterable convictions and are willing to fight for them. After various past allegiances, I have come to believe that Karl Marx was rightest of all when he recommended continual doubt and self-criticism. Membership in the skeptical faction or tendency is not at all a soft option. The defense of science and reason is the great imperative of our time, and I feel absurdly honored to be grouped in the public mind with great teachers and scholars such as Richard Dawkins, a true Balliol man, if ever there was one, Daniel Dennett, and Sam Harris. To be an unbeliever is not to be merely open-minded. It is, rather, a decisive admission of uncertainty that is dialectically connected to the repudiation of the totalitarian principle, in the mind as well as in politics. But that's my H-22. I have already described some of the rehearsals for this war, which the relativists so plaintively call endless, as if it were not indeed the latest chapter of an eternal struggle, and I find that for the remainder of my days I shall be happy enough to see if I can emulate the understatement of Commander Hitchens, and to say that at least I know what I am supposed to be doing. And I actually made a note here. I wrote the following: I disowned this genius for the mad ravings of Ted Grant. Hitchens is once again my hero. Now it just so happens that Ted Grant, the preposterous cult leader and demagogue who was the founder and leader of the militant tendency and went on to found the IMT, was a terrible writer with none of the skill and facility with the English language, or the speaking ability or sheer charisma and intelligence of this man Hitchens. And yet I turned my back on this man and joined this loathsome, disgusting cult, founded by this loathsome, repulsive cult leader. Unbelievable, but it happened. In any case, I am finally free. Free to be myself, to think my own thoughts, and not have to worry about what the Central Committee is thinking behind my back, not have to worry about them peering over my shoulder, but I am finally free to think as I please and to read what I like. Now what else? Roger Scruton's brilliant book, How to Be a Conservative. Roger Scruton is one of my favourite intellectuals. He sadly passed away in January of last year, and at that time I was still a member of the IMT, and I remember seeing the news of his death and feeling a twinge of sadness, in spite of the fact that the man was supposed to be a class enemy, or so I had been taught to believe. But I will never forget watching his brilliant documentary about beauty many years ago, when I was still in school, and of listening to interviews that Roger Scruton gave about his intellectual journey and his ideological experiences, and how he came to be a conservative. And I will always remember him as a man of eloquence, of great wisdom, of great forbearance. And he left us a treasure trove of works such as the one that I have held up to you now. I have other books by him, which I have yet to read, in fact. But after I left the Trotskyist cult that I was in, I found myself reconnecting with my old hero, Scruton, and reading over his works. And How to Be a Conservative is one of the works of his that I bought. And it's just a brilliant work. He really boils down what it means to be a conservative, what it means to love and want to preserve what is, rather than simply tear it all down, as these ignorant, far-left revolutionaries want to do. And he is one of the people that has made me realize that I am a conservative after all. And couldn't be a Marxist or a socialist even if I wanted to be. And one of the things I like most about this book is that he starts every chapter looking at a particular ideology or system of belief, the truth in capitalism, the truth in liberalism, the truth in multiculturalism, and he acknowledges that each of these ideologies has truth. He doesn't simply dismiss them as utterly false. Each of these different thought systems has some truth to them, but of course to a limited extent. And I think that the message of the book is that no one political tradition, even conservatism, has a monopoly on wisdom. They all have something to teach us, and that is the conservative attitude. It's the exact opposite of the totalitarian leftist attitude, that there is a final solution to everything provided to us by the great teachers, Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky, or whoever. No, it's an acceptance that there are no easy answers, there are no final solutions, that the problems that we as human beings will face are ultimately timeless questions that will pop up again and again, and the best we can do is muddle through. And every system of belief has something to contribute, to offer, has a truth to it. But if that truth is taken too far, it can quickly become untruth. And that is the whole point of conservatism, to remind us of our limits, to remind us not to get so intoxicated over our sense of virtue and righteousness, to remember the limits to all forms of human knowledge. And that is something which the rationalists of the left simply cannot bring themselves to understand, convinced as they are that reason can solve all problems. So that is Roger Scruton's How to Be a Conservative, which I read recently. I highly recommend, along with his other work on the virtues of pessimism. That's also a brilliant work, which I don't have here, but he really was a magnificent thinker, and I could not praise him enough. He has been a strong influence on me. And then we have this book, recommended to me by none other than Dennis Tourish. It's a brilliant work by a woman called Aileen Kraditor, who passed away some months ago, very recently. She was a very old woman in her 90s, but she wrote this book many years ago about the mental world of American communists, about the mindset of people in the American Communist Party, the emotional and mental world that they lived in, their ideas, the slogans, the cliches, the absurd, incoherent beliefs that they happen to have. And she builds a picture of these self-sacrificing militants who gave not just their time and energy and commitment to this cause of communism, but they gave over the most important thing of all, their critical faculties. They believed in all sorts of nonsense. They believed in all sorts of absolute piffle. And they did so entirely sincerely, entirely genuinely, and they spent years and decades in this organization, in this party, despite all the betrayals, all the U-turns by the leadership, by people like Browder and Foster and Stalin. They remained loyal. And these are people, many of them, who stuck with the party even after the horrors of Stalinism had come to light. And their excuse was, well, this was all just Stalin as an individual. Doesn't say anything essential about communism. It's not that the communist system is essentially wrong. It's just this man Stalin messed it up. Which, of course, from a Marxist point of view, actually is absurd, because Marxists don't believe that history revolves around individuals. They believe that it's about social and economic forces. But that's how these true believers in communism rationalized the horrors of Stalinism. It wasn't that Marxism had gone wrong. It wasn't that communism was a false belief system. No, it was Stalin as an individual who had acted wrongly. And this, of course, was the perfect rationalization for them to continue in their absurd beliefs. But it's really sad, actually, when you think about it, that so many talented people, so many intelligent people, so many passionate people believed in such absolute rot, and for many years, and wasted their lives, wasted their potential. And I am so glad that I escaped my communist cult after just 2.5 years. Think of how many more years I might have wasted on that nonsense. But Kraditor really boils down what these people believed in. She points out all of the incoherencies, all of the falsehoods, all of the contradictions in this preposterous belief system, communism. And she does it exquisitely, eloquently, with a scholarly attention to detail. It's very well written, and she draws on her own personal experience as well, because she was a member of the Communist Party before abandoning it and becoming a conservative. In fact, she's actually more well known for a book she wrote on the American suffragettes. That's what she's really remembered for. People don't like to talk about her later renegacy and her writing this book about communism. But it's a fascinating work, and there are so many parallels in this book in terms of the experiences of American communists and my own experience in a Trotskyist cult. The sad thing about this book is that there are so few copies out there that it's ridiculously expensive. So if you're looking to purchase the book, you will really have to dig deep in terms of your wallet. But I think that it was worth the cost, because this is truly a magnificent work, and I have underlined entire passages, as I am wont to do in my books, because of how many parallels I saw with my own Trotskyist communist cult. I mean, it's just incredible the way she breaks everything down, and I think it's a book that I definitely need to reread at some point. And there are so many books like this book that I need to go over again, really get to grips with again. But there are so many brilliant books out there. It's great to free one's mind from all this nonsense. And one book which I don't have on me, sadly, but is also absolutely brilliant and deserves a video or several videos or even several blog posts by itself, is Leszek Kołakowski's Main Currents of Marxism. I could not recommend that more highly. It is a fantastic work. It is a fantastic demolition of Marxist theory from one of the finest critics of communism, the finest, in fact, that you will ever find. Kołakowski was Poland's leading Marxist intellectual, who later saw the falseness of communism and came to reject it and take the path of renegacy and apostasy, for which we are eternally grateful. And he has been a big influence on my thinking. He is one of the people, he is one of the main intellectuals who got me to abandon my Marxist views, in fact, after I left the IMT, and I was still clinging on to some belief. But Kołakowski really helped to wean me off the whole failed project, the whole failed endeavor completely. He really helped to pull the scales from my eyes and allow me to see clearly once again And he goes into so much detail in these 3 volumes, which is a history of how Marxism has developed, as well as an intellectual criticism. And he goes into all the different thinkers, many of them long dead, long forgotten thinkers. He goes into how the ideology developed over time, the additions made to it, the criticisms, and he is entirely fair-handed, he is scholarly, he is intellectual. It isn't vitriol or personal attacks or anything like that, unlike what you'd find in a typical work by Lenin. But it's a brilliant demolition job of an ideology which has proven time and time again, and people do not learn from history, has proven its depravity and tyranny and its murderous nature again and again. And there are still people like myself who fall for the con. So Leszek Kołakowski's 3 volumes, Main Currents of Marxism, I highly recommend. There are so many other books that I can recommend, but these are just a few of the books which I have enjoyed reading over these past few months, and which have really helped open my mind from the intellectual prison that I was trapped in because of this ludicrous nonsense that I was involved with for 2.5 years. It is good to have intellectual freedom. It is so good to be free. And my experiences caused me to realize that a liberal conservative is what I am, and will likely remain until the day I die. I now realize that I value things like intellectual freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of association, as good things in and of themselves, and not simply as stepping stones to some illusory socialist paradise. So, because I believe that, there is no reason for me to believe in revolutionary socialism. Now, I hope that you will all learn from my own experience, that you will go away and read these wonderful works that I have looked at and examined for myself, and you too will free your mind. And to any people out there who are still trapped in the IMT cult, who are having doubts, who are thinking that maybe this organization is not for them, I plead with you, read what Stephen Hassan says about cults in this book. Read Roger Scruton. Read Christopher Hitchens and Kraditor and Kołakowski and all those others. Read their works. Read them, peruse them, make notes. Just enjoy the freedom to think for yourself. Don't worry about what some officious full-timer is going to say. You don't have to tell them that you're even reading these works. Just read them in secret. Don't even tell your comrades. Just read these works in secret and think about them. Make notes. Make mental notes. Physical notes. Or notes in whatever form you take that you prefer. But it is so important in this day and age to be informed, to be a critical thinker, and to not allow those around you to control what you think, what you read, or anything else about you for that matter. So, on that passionate note, I will end this video.